Assalamualaikum, all the Nadian viewers, as in every Saturday, 6 till 7. Mohsan Qureshi comes. I'm actually kind of a co host. Mohsan's got a guest today. What I will do, let Mohsan to come in and introduce the guest we have today, and then what subject we're going to choose today. Mohsan, you might as well come in and actually explain the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you, everyone, again for watching and tuning in. Welcome to Niyadin and the Mindset Program. Before I introduce my guests, I'll just quickly recap of last week's program because it was a really interesting one. We had two former guests, one from the Netherlands and one from Canada, and we were looking maybe globally, why is it that people, anxieties are increasing, more people are depressed, why more people are stressed out, and we came from very different angles and some interesting points that maybe it's the world that we live in now, what society tells us, what makes us happy. It's more material and things like that. And people seem to be forgetting more like what family is and the basic things and how far we've come along and a bit of a mindset change that we maybe need to take. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. So before I start with this week, I've got Mr. Ricky Rafford who's joining us today. Ricky, if you want to just tell us a bit about yourself as well for our viewers.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been badgering you to get me on the show. I've been following it for a good month or so now, and I want to start by saying what you're doing is really, really, really powerful. Raising awareness in the community doesn't happen enough, so it's good to see it happening on an online platform now rather than just face-to-face in person. Myself, I'm 31 years of age. I'm a trainee solicitor. I love traveling. I love sport. Big family man. Monday to Friday, I'm in law, and then Saturday, Sunday, I'm a football coach. So me and a couple of friends decided to start up a football academy about 6 years ago for all the kids of our community. We grew that to about 200 plus children. And yeah, it's just been one thing after another with that, and we've grown really big. So we've seen a lot happen in our 6 years. I actually wanted to become a football player when I was younger. I was interviewed by the BBC for being the first Asian footballer signed on the books of a professional club. I didn't quite make it, but following on from that, I did become an ambassador for sport in the Northwest to try to get more Asians involved in the game. So what will be valuable, hopefully, today is the reasons as to why I didn't make it, and that will be sort of the front line as to why a lot of the Asians in the community now are not kind of coming through the ranks. So I'm here to share my views, and we'll see how it goes.
Brilliant. No, Rick, thank you very much for coming on. Like yourself, I'm a big sports fan as well. And it's one of them things when we started this program, we did want to see what are we doing wrong, maybe within our culture, the British Asian issues that we come across, or even issues outside of our culture. We've talked about racism before and things like that as well. But it is always important to try and use these platforms in a positive way. And if we can share some of our own life experiences or help people or change some mindsets along the way where we can get better, then by all means, that's what we're here for. So one of the things that, what brings us here today is we want to see why is there a lack of British Asians in the professional sports games. I know in some games we have a bit of success, in others, such as football, not very much. When I cast my mind back in football, I can remember there was Zishan Rehman, who was a centre-back, played for, I think, maybe Fulham for a short while. And then he changed clubs, and I think he started playing for Pakistan as well and doing some coaching there. And I know currently there is a chap, Chowdhury, who plays for Leicester, and he comes on here and there, bit part player, and I think he's from a Bangladeshi ethnic background. In cricket, we've seen a couple of players over the years. I even know one personally, Ajmal Shahzad, played for England, and I think he's in the coaching role now as well. And then everyone's fan favourite, Monty Panesar, he did quite well, and he was in the game for quite a few years. So when I think back though, Ricky, I can remember myself about maybe 7-8 years ago when I used to play a lot more football then, five-a-side. And there was a young Asian lad who we were playing against, and he wasn't that big, and he must have been about 11 or 12 years old, right? But this kid was that good that he was actually managed to keep up with grown men, real talent. And we've played a lot of sports, we've come across that odd person where it's like, wow, this person is good. And I understand there's levels to things as well, and we played decent at high amateur level in various sports, and we weren't good enough. So that could be one of the reasons. But that's not the reason I'm going to mention to start off with. So when I found out more about this young lad, his father owned, I think it's a cash and carry franchise in Bradford. So the family's fairly well off, got good money and everything. They're settled, they're stable. I found out that a Premiership club down in London previously approached this young lad as well and his family. So he must have played for a local team, and scouts come and see, and the news is spread because that's how good he was. And in my head, I was like, why is he not going for it? This is a bit of a no-brainer. It's a lifetime opportunity. And I was informed that because of his family, he didn't end up going, because they didn't want a young lad of that age to go all the way hundreds of miles to the other side of the country to go and just play football. So I know our culture, family means a lot to us. It's one of the best things we have in our culture. I know there's good and bad in all. We take bits from the British culture, but we're family-orientated people, and I know you definitely are, Rick, and so am I, and that's always important to us. And many decisions we made in life, we've made based around family. So I can understand from a parent's point of view, if it's the only child or something, do they want to send a kid at 11, 12 all the way to the other side in order to support and take that gamble and risk? Maybe they would have had to sell up, or they might have been able to adjust a bit and think, right, do you know what, maybe we can send one of his brothers, or if there's a sibling or a relative we can trust. But ultimately, he didn't get the opportunity to even start his footballing career at such a young age because of the restrictions put on by his family. I understand the older I've got, if tomorrow I was to have children, and if one of my sons or daughters had to move hundreds of miles away at a very young age, it'd be a very, very tough decision to make. Because again, we are British, but we are British Asian as well, and our mindsets are slightly different on things like this. So is that something you've come across yourself, where it's culturally maybe other factors that a lot of people don't see that set us back a bit?
Absolutely. So I've put down the lack of Asians in sport to three things. The first thing I would probably say is lack of parental support, and it touches on from what you've just said. When I was playing for Oldham Athletic, any games outside of Greater Manchester we couldn't go to. My parents were always working. You know, in the early 2000s, that's what was important. It was making sure there's food on the table. You have to work hard to bring everything in to the household, especially when there's loads of kids as well. So if you can't get to games, unfortunately, that's bad punctuality from a football club. So, you know, there's always that aspect of not having the support. Now, what I've seen for firsthand from our academy side of things with parental support is when we have matches, you know, when we've got to go and play league games and stuff like that, you want your parents to help out and bring their children to games. I wasn't seeing that. Now, when we were playing against opposition, most of the teams we play were obviously of English origin, and all of their parents are on the sidelines, all of theirs. We would be very lucky to have one set of our parents on the side watching their kid play football. That's where obviously I had to then invest and pretty much purchase a minibus to get these kids to the games and back, because the parents, I couldn't rely on them. I maybe get one set of parents to drop one or two kids off, but then I couldn't rely on them to pick them up because it just, the seriousness just wasn't there. I think the first sort of focal point is you need your parents behind you if you're going to succeed in this game. Without that, it's going to be very difficult. Now, the second point I want to make, it ties into exactly what you just said about sort of the family business, the cash and carry sort of thing. It's money. So one thing Asian parents, what I've seen is that they don't like paying for their child to go and play football. I think that's slowly shifting now with the new generation. But from the time I was playing up until the point I was coaching up until the last sort of couple of years, it has been the case where I've never charged a kid anything for training and for merchandise and anything else. The only contribution I used to ask the kids was on match days. That was where we had to actually bring cash because we had to pay the referee's fee and the pitch fee. So all I would ask is for £2 every match day, and that will cover the ref's fee, the pitch fee, and I'll put in the rest myself. Even that become a problem. Asian parents just didn't want to pay, even if it was, they expected everything to be for free. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a handful that would bring, but majority didn't. And that just sort of, you know, it just ties in with the fact that, you know, the support financially isn't there. It was a challenging phase. But it just wasn't something that was entertained too well. And like you said, I think if you've got family businesses and everything else, that sort of has taken priority for Asian families.
I just wanted to chip in with some of the points you made, Rick, because you made some interesting points, and it's one of them. We always try to keep a balanced view here and a balanced approach. And as much as we'd like our children to go and become professional athletes because we're big into sports, on the flip side, we also have to understand that our parents came here for a purpose and a reason. And we've even done programs before in the past, trying to explain to our younger generation how much our elders have done to kind of sacrifice for us. I think it is a bit different for us now because we're first generation born and raised here. Football is like the number one religion of this country, regardless if there's a lot of people from an English background who don't seem to follow much of a faith now. But when it comes to a sport or a football, they'll take people's lives over it. And we've seen Leeds have been promoted again, and congratulations to them, and everyone's so happy. And Liverpool won the Premier League for the first time this year, and you've seen how big of a celebration it was. So for me, in this country, the number one religion tends to be football. Whereas for us, we have our own faiths and we have our own beliefs as well. So for us, we're not maybe as diehard into it. If the day I have children, if one of them becomes a professional football, I'd be over the moon. But going through that process, I guess, is a hard thing, because if our elders have strived and struggled to kind of just give us the basics in life. We've all grown up from humble beginnings, humble backgrounds, didn't get that much support. So I can understand from a parent's point of view as well that, do I want to invest so much time and effort and money for something that these lot are doing for pastime? I guess our type of mentality is we're not really going to make it. Because we kind of have that mentality, it is more of a hobby rather than a career. I guess that's one of the things that's a stumbling block. We're not going in wholeheartedly. And you made a really important point that support is a big thing. We talk about support in nearly every program we do, whether it's supporting your family, supporting your friends, supporting your co-workers, supporting people who are going through a difficult time. But even if someone wants to become successful in a career, you have to adapt and live that life. So even I watch a lot of UFC or boxing and stuff like that, and these people dedicate their whole lives to it just to try and make it to that level. So it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. But because we have family businesses or people like that do, I'm guessing the expectation from early on is that my son or daughter are going to carry on the family business, what I've started. So it's always important to have that balance. I can understand one point and the other as well.
Yeah,
And,
but
sorry, go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
well, I was going to just follow on from that and basically say, yeah, I completely get what you're saying, because, if for our parents and obviously that generation, they came to England and they obviously had nothing but the option to just work for us guys in our futures. So if they've sacrificed everything to get to this stage, then the schools are there for us to go, educate ourselves, the primary schools, the high schools, the colleges. For them, it's a huge gamble for them to just say, put all that aside and just progress a career in sport, because it's just not the way they ever have foreseen a path for you. So it's a difficult one, because we have to strike that balance then, because, end of the day, do you go against your family's, wishes and just try to pursue something yourself, which is a huge gamble, because we've seen how hard it is to make it in sport. It's unbelievably hard.
Very hard, very hard.
Well, one interesting point that you just touched on there was the likes of sort of the people that are in sport already that have sacrificed stuff and made it. And that's sort of what I was thinking in terms of another thing that is lacking Asians from progressing in sport, is because of there's such a small minority of them already in the game. So, for example, when we joined the football team, you were probably similar to me because you're quite keen on football. When we would play with our school football team, I was pretty much the only Asian in my team. But when I joined the football club, I was the only Asian there. So the fact that there's not any other Asians playing with you, and it's not a racism thing, it's a confidence thing. You would feel a little bit more confident if you've seen another Asian, whether it's a tennis club, a rugby club, or football club. There was one or two, but there's just not enough of them in the game. Now, why are more Asians now joining boxing clubs and mixed martial arts clubs and gyms that have cages and punch bags? Because the likes of Amir Khan has been successful. Khabib, these are big Muslim figures in the community that have been very successful. And all of a sudden, we're seeing an influx of people wanting to join that industry now. It's not been the case in football. Like you said, Bar Hamza Chowdhury, I can't really name many more that are sort of actively playing in the Premier League. But these guys have made it. They've been successful, and they've now put the platform there for Asians to try and follow. And it's an exciting area at the moment with MMA and boxing at the moment. So
I agree with the points that you're making. You know, like everything's a generational thing, and I guess we are still playing a bit of catch up to previous ethnic minorities that have come to this country, and everyone's just trying to do a bit better than the previous generation that came before them. With the MMA that you've mentioned, when we were growing up, there was an MMA fighter from around our area, and he even managed to become champion as well. And full credit to him. And then that phase kind of died out a bit. So we even started doing the training. This is when I'm talking about 18, so very long time ago. But now, because it's a lot more popular on TV, and you made a good point about Habib Nurmagomedov being a world champion, being very respectful, showing religious beliefs in a positive light, being a good positive role model. Like you said, that inspires a whole new generation of people to think, you know what, I want to strive to be like that type of person. And because of the positive role model, even the elders are more likely to get involved as well. Because I think with a lot of sports, we only see the bad side of things as well. So then it might be another thing with the mindsets of our elders is that, oh, that's just joke, that's just rubbish, that they're just hooligans and X, Y, and Z, because sometimes it gets painted in that light. And even the likes of Amir Khan, I know he's opened up academy in Islamabad in Pakistan. I think he's also got boxing academy in Bolton. And there's other academies I know as well around Bradford. There's one I think called Huggies Gym. And there's a female boxer from there who ended up becoming an Olympian. If Nicola Adams off top of my head, I think that's who it was. So there are more and more people within our areas actually creating these environments now. And even I know a few lads younger than me, one of them turned professional recently, and all the best to him. So it's nice to see that there's platforms there and there's positive role models there. In football, we're still kind of a bit behind. In cricket, I know Fame was a big cricketer, so he can come in on that. But in the boxing and other sides of things, it seems like we are now slowly trying to break through.
Just really, while I was listening to you guys, I always, as you, in the end, Mohsen, you mentioned it, cricket, because Pakistan team or even India team, you find a lot of Asians are actually Indian team playing very well, Pakistani team playing very well. And people do really look into it, like Brother Rick mentioned. Obviously, you got to have some kind of a big name where attract the youth to go in there. That's probably one reason. My questions to Rick, especially, and you, uh, is it something to do with our physique as well? Especially, I'm talking about football, because it's kind of a myth I heard sometime. Pakistani cannot play football because of their height, or there's something like this. Can you just explain that? This kind of a confusion there. Pakistani can't be a footballer. They're not tall enough. Uh, uh, they're different type of physique. Is that true, or is it just kind of a myth?
No, so there's two sides to this. If we look at sort of footballers that are actually professionals right now, you've got people as short as 5 foot, whatever, Messi, you know, the likes of Raheem Sterling, they're all very small, but they are professionals. So I think the height factor in terms of to become a pro is not an issue. However, what I have seen, because I work alongside sort of football clubs, we've done projects with the likes of Manchester City, Bury FC, Oldham Athletic, and we have access to their scouts. And what I found with them is, even though there's so many short players in football, if you are short at a football trial, that's not one of the things they look for. They're actually looking for tall, strong, confident people who can get their head stuck in, that kind of, they're looking for them traits. So they're not really too sort of concerned on a short player. So to an extent, you are definitely on the right track there. I think if it's not entirely sort of a statement I can agree with, because if someone turns up and starts taking everyone on with silky skills and they're very short, they can't turn a blind eye to that. But you are right, because they have a criteria they look for in a up and coming young star, and it has to be high power, confidence, verbal, if they're talking a lot on the pitch, that kind of thing. But one thing I've seen with the Asian community, we don't seem to be as big as the English community on a football pitch. That's one thing I think, even the lads that I have, when we have our games, whether it's the under-12s, the under-15s or the under-18s, we're always the smallest team. Albeit are the odd team that we play against. I don't know what that's down to, genetics or what, but it definitely does. It does hold us back a little bit. I'll definitely give you that. Yeah.
I wanted to just add a bit as well. Sorry, Fame, is that I think these things mattered more when we were growing up. So there's certain characteristics and criteria. So if you want to be an athlete, you're a sprinter, you need to be built like this. If you're a rugby player, you need to be built like this. So there's always certain things, like you said, that clubs look for, which kind of fits the bill. I think as time's gone on, though, these stereotypes have changed because of the likes of Maradona, Lionel Messi, and N'Golo Kante. But in general, what Ricky's saying is there is a certain specification that people look for. When it comes to things like cricket, though, I just want to go back a little bit as well from the point that Fame started. You see, we're more likely to be successful in cricket because I also think our families are more likely to be behind it. In football, because there's not that many, our generation, we're football fans, but our elders weren't. Our elders, they did watch a bit of boxing or other traditional sports, maybe hockey and things like that. But when it comes to cricket, if their son or daughter becomes a professional cricketer, that's like they're going to be the happiest parent in the world because cricket, they have that love and passion for cricket. And because they understand the game and they understand, you know what, this person can make a career of it and they're idols. And when cricket happens, even years ago, like when it's India versus Pakistan, the world used to come to a standstill. So there's no bigger world global derby in our eyes than India and Pakistan cricket matches. The whole world will stop and watch it. So because we're more around it, I think our families and parents are more likely to support us as well when it comes to something like cricket. I just wanted to quickly get that point in.
No, I agree. I'm just really saying why I actually made that point. So, like Brother Ricky said, it does matter a little bit.
A little
Because
bit.
if they're going in a club and they're not fit and tall, right? That's first thing is already sitting in front of them now, because they has to be extra skillful and
Extra special. Yeah.
right? Obviously extra special. You can't really kind of do that. I'll bring the other point before Brother Rick come in there. Is also, as in I understand, the football league. Do you think the people who actually good players they get paid in the league or something like this? I'm talking about smaller leagues because I know football has a lot of money if you compare with cricket. Cricket has no money unless even you can imagine even the English players who are actually playing for England, they doesn't get that kind of a money. Even a small football club, guys that pays 3 times more than that. So is the leagues also have kind of enough money to our kids to go and chase that, or is it something not exactly the same?
Yeah, I think football is a very lucrative sport, different to everything else. Albeit boxing has changed a lot recently, but football has money that goes from the Premier League at the top level all the way down the ranks. And even if you're playing for a League Two side, it's still you're still going to walk away with a couple of £1,000 a week, which shows that the money it flows straight through to the bottom leagues. Why that is, I don't really have an answer, because cricket should be just as lucrative, but unfortunately it's just not. But there's definitely a lot of, I think it should maybe to be sponsors as well, because everyone seems to sponsor the footballing game, because there's such a variety of events in football, from a World Cup to a Euro Championship to a Champions League. Then you've got your normal domestic leagues. It's just endless in football. The opportunities for sponsors and companies to get their name in there is also endless.
I think just to add as well, Rick, it's also the investment that's been put in. So if you've got a stadium which holds, I don't know, 80,000, like some of the bigger clubs out there, if that person's paying an average 30, 40, 50 pound just to go and watch the match, they're making hundreds of thousands every time people are playing. And when that money is then reinvested back into the players, because there's more eyes on it, it's pushed more. And the thing with England is the Premier League is watched globally. People from China are fans of the Premier League. People from the Arab world are fans of the Premier League, even Pakistan and India, because there's so many eyes on it. Multi-million-dollar TV right deals get made, sponsorships get made, and they only last a couple of years sometimes until people want to renegotiate. So when it comes to the lower leagues as well, they're still looked after compared to something like cricket. It's a seasonal sport, I guess. Whereas football, they have the league, they have 2 different cups, they have the Champions League then, which is played all across Europe. Then during the summers, they have the World Cups and the Euro competitions as well. So it's a constant thing that's going on all year round.
Yeah. Merchandise
Can I just make the point, which is, as in Rick especially came, the question, I'll bring it to him, but before I really make a point. So that means in football, there is a quite reasonable money in there. Uh, Obviously, a lot of Asians are watching our program. So if they're really kind of a good on it and they really wants to join football, and if they make a good, obviously, a lot of Asians take that as a challenge. But the Rick is very active himself as well. So it can be financially you beneficial. Uh, Even if you don't have a job, which is jobs now these days are quite difficult. A lot of youth are really sitting doing nothing, and if they involve themselves in the football, and if they're good enough, they can really also make money because end of the day, because as in Mohsen you mentioned it, we as in being an Asian, some of our guys are doing very well, but majority of Asians don't earn that kind of a money. It's kind of hand to mouth now these days. Anyhow, I mean, you can see it's since obviously this COVID-19 is going to come. I don't know what is he going to really turn up to anyway. But obviously, you has to be open a new venue, as in being an Asian ourselves, right? Okay, so I personally think from this program, people take that point. Look, there is a reasonable money in there. If you go down in there, come and do it because football. I don't think, like you said, it's £2 a week when you pay going and playing a match like this, like you got to play for the ground and all that. This is not a big amount of money. Every parent can easily really do that. Even the children have their pocket money, that kind of a money. They can do that. It's actually making attraction to Asian kids. Look, if you're really good on it, you can make money as well. You can make career out of it. Better than cricket, to be honest. That's the
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. Hell of a lot more.
My question is to Rick again. Uh, there is, you feel among the footballers, there's some kind of racism, as in, it's more like a lot of English players who plays are. There is a very small number of Asian in there. One thing is already against you because either you're especially very skillful and you're not a big guy. That's the only time you're going to come in and notice, right? But then again, you see, probably they think you're not fit enough to go there, or a little bit racism. You feel it there?
No, so I'll tell you an interesting point about pretty much all the football clubs in the country, and this will take away the fact of any kind of racism. So most clubs in England, especially in the Premier League, they are trying to be the first club to start bringing through Asians through their ranks because it's not happened at any club properly before. A lot of the people that have kind of made it through, they've never reached the heights that you expect of professional, successful footballers. So Man City have done a project in Manchester where they had a trial day. 2,000 people came, and it was only to Asian and black minority people. And they want to try and sort of fizz out 20 to 30 through all of these trial days that they do. Manchester United did something similar last year. All these clubs, they want to actually bring through Asia because as a club, it will enhance their profile massively. So that the idea of potential racism in football is more about the fans. Fans, you can never change fans' opinions because some people are naturally just once they've got it inbuilt, you can't get that out of them. But with regards to football clubs themselves, they're all against it from what my experience has been. And if anything, they want to try and get agents to come through their progressive ranks, almost like get a degree, go to school at this football club, get your college, get your university, all through the football club, because then that's homegrown talent, you see. That's how they class it. And if, Chelsea or United can say, we brought through our own, who is now a world-class player, that's like sort of a groundbreaking achievement for any kind of football club. So I think to answer your question, no, I don't think there's any racism in football clubs. I think there is in fans, but that's something we can't really change, and everyone's trying to fight it.
If I can just chip in as well. So from my take, looking at other companies and things and how they operate, it would actually be beneficial for a Premier League football club to have someone of ethnic minorities because that attracts fans from that ethnic minority to that club. So the irony is a lot of football fans, not all, but a lot of football fans do shout racist or ignorant stuff. The good thing is, though, the Premier League, the top division, if they see things like that, they put measures in place and they ban these people. With the all Black Lives Matter protests that's been going on, they even had Black Lives Matter on the back of their shirts. They didn't have their names. They put banners up and everything. And football always does a lot to try and kick racism out of the sport. So granted, there is the odd occasion where even the professional has said or done something wrong, or even the fans, but they are working long and hard to do it. The reason I'm saying the point that it's going to benefit them is I was, again, watching the UFC, and the UFC recently have been in Abu Dhabi doing the fights there because of all the COVID that's going on. And somebody approached him and kept saying, there's a guy here, he's an Arab, he's a really good fighter, you need to put him on. So he took the risk and he took the gamble and he put that person on, and that person lived up to the expectations. For him, it's a global support. And now if you get someone from that region, not only is he going to inspire so many more people, but then that's hundreds of thousands of people who are now going to start watching the support just because of this one person. So if we had somebody homegrown from our areas, whether it's the Yorkshire or Manchester area, and we knew in person they became professional, that knock-on effect will have for so many other people, or the amount of shirt sales that will happen. That's another thing in football. They make so much money from shirt sales and just having people's names on the back that it'll not only inspire, but then more and more people are likely to get through. Again, granted, when we were younger, there was always some coaches or people like that where they do have the old school English mindset where they were stuck in their ways. But luckily, the modern day English mindset, a lot of them might be ignorant and they don't understand our cultures and things like that, but they're not very much racist. They just don't understand. They haven't taken that time. They haven't come across enough people to understand. So I don't think racism's a factor this day and age. I think it comes down to the fact that maybe when it comes to football, some of us just aren't good enough. Yeah. So like if Rick's saying these trials have gone out because they want to find that next Asian superstar, so everyone in the country is going to be behind them, it's going to benefit them in the long run. They're going to get more eyes on the game, more people supporting them and making more money as well.
Okay. My question again, I mean, obviously, as in Mohsan, no, I'm the instigator. It's my title. So when I used to play cricket, obviously in the league, right? Okay. Normally, after you playing a cricket, normally always cricket club league, they have some kind of a public house there, and after that, it's sponsored by locals, or they have some kind of a support to ground to have it and things like this. And I always see after playing a match, the family sitting and drinking, and that's their social activities after the match, 2-3 hours, right? Being a Muslim, and I don't drink, so to me it was really useless to sitting there and gossip about it. And we used to encourage, because a lot of Asian boys are actually taking by me to join that club because they were quite good on cricket. Because we had a lot of success story when it comes to cricket. I mean, I can tell you loads of. I'm not talking about that. But what I'm really saying here, I make sure they get integrated with them, and we used to sit and drink juices or eat crisps and things like this. Uh, in football, obviously, football is a game which is might be over within 45 minutes, 1 hour. After that, their social activities is like allowing and everything else. I think this is also discouraging our Asian family to send our children into that kind of environment. You know, like you says, do as you do as in Rome and do if you're in Rome. If you're in that kind of a circle where obviously all the drinking is there, right? Okay, then obviously you got to join that. I think that's probably one of the reasons. And brother, obviously playing cricket, do you think you find that some kind of doesn't have that kind of a bounding because you don't drink with them? And I really realize when you're playing a club, when you don't engage with them that much, and they're thinking, oh, bloody hell, you are actually kind of outsider. You don't sit drink with them. You don't engage with them. The only reason we didn't engage because we don't drink. So you feel that kind of things also stopping?
This kind of comes back to my point about, if you have more Asians already in the team, it will give you a bit more of a comfort to just accept the little things like people having a drink or whatever, because you can still sit with your friends and not feel awkward. If you don't have enough Asians in a team, then it's not a good environment for you, because you've got people there all having alcohol or whatever it is, and you will feel like a bit of an outsider. And yeah, it will stop people from joining teams like this. But unfortunately, we live in, a country where we can't make the rules and the laws. So if it's a norm here, we have to kind of accept how it works outside of the game. I mean, with football though, I don't seem to think that's an issue at all, because you go to training, you play football, you go changing room, you change, you have your game. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where after a match everyone's gone to a communal area where everyone kind of sits and has a drink. I think with cricket there's a club, like, is it the clubhouse, or
sure.
And same with golf, there's a clubhouse after that, and they are kind of environments where everyone congregates after matches. Whereas with football, it's not like that. It's more a case of the match is over, shower up and go home.
You're saying the football doesn't have that kind of environment unless you're a bigger club, unless you're such a big, huge club. Because everywhere I've been playing cricket, there's always a football side in Leeds I'm talking about, and also cricket side. So they were all both joining their changing rooms. They were shared and everything else. I don't know, maybe you were experiencing something else. Obviously, football ground doesn't have to be that much prepared as in cricket ground does. I mean, football ground, even if it's a little bit raining, you can still play football. Cricket has its ups and down kind of weather really affect big time cricket. But what I see in most of clubs here, there a cricket club, there is also football club next to it, because a most liking game in UK is football. So I can understand they were trying to cater it. But there might be some towns that doesn't have that. Mohsan, you want to make a point of that?
Yeah, I thought you made a really interesting point there, Fame, because I actually went through something similar just yesterday. Schools are finished and broken up, and rightfully so, people wanted to go and enjoy, and even a lot of my work colleagues, they wanted to go out for a few drinks, and a couple of them asked me, and I just said, it's not my scene, and whatever else have you. And even myself, I have to kind of try to explain then that, and a few of us were saying, oh no, but we don't drink either. And it's not necessarily the fact that we don't drink, it's just we've been busy working this whole time. We live different lives. A lot of them don't really understand it. And culturally, it's fine for them. And like Rick said, sometimes you be a good sport, you can have a Coke, an orange juice, or whatever else have you, and have a chit chat. But again, it's like for myself, I ended up coming back home and I went to a graveyard instead, and I prayed for some of the deceased who have passed away recently. Because again, that for me is something that's a bit more important rather than just going out and sitting there while people get drunk. So I think that factor from a bit more of an old school mentality does sometimes play a part. But like Rick said, in football, it's not really the case. You kind of just finish the game. You kind of go along your way. Analysing what you guys have been saying, though, for me, I think the number one thing, especially when it comes to football, is probably support from your family. So if Rick is saying to me that not a lot of them are going to be on the sideline, they're actually not aware of how good potentially their child is at something. Whereas in cricket, Fame, you'll know better. I'm sure a lot more of the Asian families or friends used to come and watch because they're more integrated into cricket, or even if it's boxing club, their parents.
Mohsan, in our culture, obviously we were encouraging it, but in our culture, obviously they're not liking football like you guys are saying. That's probably one of the reasons they are not getting engaged. I'm totally, it's in like a culture thing, right? Okay.
But this is the point I'm making, Fame, though. Do you know, if we have a talent there and it's a superstar kid and this kid can go far, like the one I came across years ago, his family or his dad probably wasn't aware how good your son actually is. Whereas people like us who enjoy the game, watch the game, play the game, it's like, man, this kid is something special and he can go far. But if they're not seeing it themselves firsthand, they're none the wiser. They're just going to say, oh, Dad, I'm going to go play a football match. And once the football match is finished, they've come home, but they've not actually witnessed that potential talent that is being wasted. Even if it's a boxing club when it's a young age, our elders will end up taking them. I know my brother used to take his son to, I think, jiu-jitsu with my cousin and his nephew, and they used to sit there and they used to watch. Or like my niece, for example, goes gymnastics. My sister's going to be sat there with her and she's going to watch. So they can see and witness firsthand, are they going through any struggles, any challenges, are they enjoying it, how good they actually are. But if you're not going to witness it, then you're not necessarily going to be behind it. I want to throw a question to yourself, Rick. Have you come across any situations like that where there's a raw talent, and then is it your job then to kind of go and try and convince the parents that, you know what, there's a good potential here, and like, what's the reaction from there?
Yeah, so I definitely had some standouts at a certain phase in our academy in the last years or so, and definitely had potential to get a trial. Definitely had potential to impress at trials. There was a good 3 of them, and I had to tell the father, "Come and watch your son. Come and watch your son," because they're from a Czech Republic origin. So I said, "You've got to come and watch your son," because we had pretty much an Asian team, but we had a few Czech lads. You know, they'd come from overseas and settled here. And his dad came and he scored a hat trick on that day. To score a hat trick, and his dad was running up and down. I said, "See, look, this is what your kids are capable of. There's 3 of them on the same team." And he was like, "I didn't even know. The problem that we have is once they get to that age of 13 and 14, they start going off a bit more of a social path. So then they're trying to balance our footballing on the weekend with their Monday to Friday socializing. And in the end, you know, if the scouts don't come down on time, because we were getting delays, I was getting scouts to come down, but then it was almost like, "We'll come next month." Next month never came, and then it just went off and did their own thing. But what I wanted to sort of just pick up on, something you said was really important. You mentioned support. I think support in this game is super important, because that's one of the crucial things that's stopping the Asians from progressing. I'll give you an example. So what we do on the weekends, it's not just about coaching, and most of you'll know this firsthand. So we have to be we have to have the safeguarding for children certificate. We have to be CRB checked. So we also be identifying, red flags. Children come to our academy not just to play football. Some come for fun. Some come to play football. Some come to progress their footballing career. Others come to get away from home. So I'll give you an example. I like to give our children life lessons, and I'll huddle them around and I'll give them a Fergie speech, and I'll basically say to the boys, "Guys, look, if I baby feed you everything, you're not going to develop and learn as growing individuals. So what I say to you is bring your own water bottles. If you don't bring your own water bottles, or if you don't bring your own shin pads, you can't train. It's as simple as that." They'll start developing a bit more responsibility this way, that I need to get before I go. Now, one kid pulled me aside, and for confidential reasons, I won't disclose sort of names and stuff, but he pulled me aside and he said, "Coach, please can you ask my dad to get me a water bottle?" So that to me indicated one of 2 things. One, either financially they don't have money or they're struggling, or 2, this kid is scared. He's scared to ask his father. And that shows that, at the end of the day, there's more to what we're doing here than just coaching football. It's to get away from one thing. And as a club, we found a solution for it. It's what you were just touching on. We have to provide support. It's not just about, football. It's about sort of giving these kids a platform to actually just spend a couple of hours every weekend, and they might start liking it differently. They might come there to get away from their home life. They might start feeling themselves differently, and we've seen that with one individual. He's become a quality. You don't see many good Asian goalkeepers. This guy is by far the best goalkeeper at the age of 13.
Wow.
From an Asian background, and I'm hopefully going to nurture him the right way. But it just shows, that support is lacking in our community, because all these people that have made it in football, they've had to sacrifice it very early on. Their parents have had to say from the age of 12, 13, "Forget your studies, go ahead and we'll fund whatever we have to fund." Don't think we've quite got that. I think with cricket, it's a little bit more different, isn't it? Because look at how many successful Asian cricketers have made it to England. From Abdul Rashid, Moeen Ali, Nasser Hussain, Sajid Mahmood. We've had a good influx of Asian players in football. We've not seen that. I don't know. Maybe you can add to this. Is it easier to make it in the cricketing world, or is it because there's not much sort of funding in the game that it's easier for people to be a part of it, or what? Because football is very difficult, isn't it? It's grows all the way to sort of 18, 19-year-old. But we've seen a lot of successful Asians in the cricketing world.
I've seen, obviously, as you mentioned, is the like of the game, because it's like it's known to be Asian game. Though again, British is the one who's supposed to be at one time the best cricketers in the world, right? Okay, gradually their ranking is gone down. Cricket is taken by India or Pakistan or maybe Sri Lanka or the other countries. I mean, Australia also very well. But what I'm really saying is a very popular game from Asian, so that's probably one reason. Secondly, the second reason, as you were saying, uh, the size, because uh, now I think our change, as in our third or fourth generation is there. Our kids are quite tall and fit. I mean, it used to be the kids are slightly smaller, and I think the only time things have changed, like you can see, Mohsen is a fit guy. I can see you look like a tall and fit guy, right? Okay, so you can fit in easily because you're tall and strong, right? Okay, uh, when it comes to Asian kids, they're not tall and strong. Used to be. It's gradually changing because living in this country, so
Mm.
that's probably one of the reasons. Secondly, I was going to ask you a question. That's actually I'm trying to conclude in a sense. I repeat that again, which is in the end we're going to conclude into that angle. There's a lot of reasonable money to be made if you become a footballer, especially when the crisis of jobs and things like this, right? Okay. So I'm any parents who are listening, if they thinking their children's like it and their children are good, please help them, encourage them. Don't discourage them. Rather than your kid sitting on a tablet or
Mm.
doing silly things outside, because when you're youth you wants to do a lot of other things, he rather than involved in the support, which is really is help for him, it makes him physically fit, is also engaging not to do silly things. As you guys know, in our society, in the culture, loads of other things are available, which is really our children can easily fall into that. So my message is to that. But my question is basically to Brother Rick. Obviously, he's a coach. The kids you're talking about, the Asian, do you find them they are actually good skilled, as good if you put comparison with the English kids and the Asian kids? What is your experience? Oh, at the same time, uh, you're talking about that trial with 200 people that turned up. How many black community guys are, the Afro-Caribbean community side was there, and how many Asian were there? If you tell me that ratio, then I'll have a little idea.
So it was over the course of the weekend, their aim was to get about 2,000 people from the Manchester region. So they targeted Asians, Bengalis, Indians, Pakistanis, and Somalians. That was their target market. Now, the majority that turned up were Somalians because that area of Manchester is a very highly populated area of Somalians. I would say about 1,200 to 1,300 of the people that attended, because we went there as well. We seen the setup, you see, because for us, it's all learning as well. We like to see the setup of the likes of Manchester City and Co, because it will just help us implement little things for our academy, because we're on a small scale. So there was a big number there. What I would probably say is, even if they sign 50 people from that day, we won't see the success of that until maybe 5, 6, 7 years time, because they need to hit that age of 17, 18 where they start breaking through to the mainstream team. At the moment, they'll just be in an academy. Let's say they made it into the academy level. They'll be playing behind closed doors, and working their way up the ranks like you do in school. So the success, I think, with what we're all sort of trying to discuss today, is going to kind of come to the front in about 5 to 10 years' time. Because even now, we are starting to see the new generation of parents, our elder brothers, etc. I know the ones local to me, they take their children to proper football clubs now and tennis clubs and what have you, and they're happy to pay £30 a month. They're more than happy to pay. And likewise for us, I'm sure most of them will agree, if there's a good structured club there, we'll be happy to pay that for our children as well.
Yeah, definitely.
There for them. We're starting to see that now, and that's from the age of 8, 9, 10 years old. So I think in the next 10 years, 15 years, we're going to see a huge influx of Asians in sport. And I think across the board, not just football. I think football, boxing, tennis, cricket. Rugby is the only one I think we probably will like, because that you do need the big build for. And it's not sort of something the Asian community seems to warm to, rugby. But definitely in football, I think the future is bright, and it's taken sort of the last 5 years of preparing and planning, for it to get to that stage. So hopefully, yeah, we'll see some change soon.
My question was, I'm just going to repeat it again. Because you are actually involved with a lot of Asian kids. When you're putting the Asian kid and the English kid, where do you find more skillful? Is it the English kid or the Asian? I'm very honest about it. I just want to see what's the outcome of it. Knowing that obviously they're not going to fit into the height wise, but they can be very skillful.
Yeah, absolutely. I from the kids that I've coached, I can honestly and happily say there was about 10 children which I think were good enough to play at semi-pro clubs for that. Now that's integrated within the white community. The problem that I had was the parents were not ready to sacrifice everything for them to be able to get to that. They would have had to take their children different parts of England for trials, because these trials, it's not just a one-off test. They have to basically have them playing a couple of parts of UK, a couple of days, in the month. That commitment's not there. So I couldn't test them to the full potential because they couldn't actually attend the examinations, if you like, in football. But in terms of raw skill, there's so much talent. And we wouldn't be doing this 6 years on if there was no talent there, because it'd be like, well, kids are just coming here running around kicking a ball. But we were developing these kids and they were building themselves up into really mature football players. But it's just very difficult for the ages to break through. And the only way that can happen is through the parents more than anything else, because they can be the best player ever, but if the parents are not with them, it's difficult. And I think the only sort of light we can see at the end of the tunnel is a new set of parents, because most of the parents that we coach are still sort of, whether they're taxi drivers or, they've still got their jobs where they're not actively involved in the children's sort of sporting career or life.
I think there's another thing that I want to add in, which we might be missing a trick on, especially when it comes to football. And that is, it's just the level of competition. So if we're going to compare it like we have been doing to cricket, with cricket, it's mainly the Commonwealth countries which are the cricket playing nations. So the India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, New Zealand, things like that. These countries are all involved with cricket. Whereas if we're looking at football, and if we're looking at just in England in football, like you mentioned, Rick, the Somalians will play it, the Czechs will play it. Everyone from every different culture is trying to become a footballer or will play football. So that level of competition is so much more, because you're competing against every various ethnicity there possibly can be. Whereas we're not necessarily going to see Czech people getting involved with cricket, or maybe not even Somalian people getting involved in cricket, but we will see the more Pakistanis and the Indians getting involved in it because they're more inclined to that. So I think the level of competition, it makes it even harder, as well as the lack of commitment. But like Rick said, it starts from a very young age. So I even know a friend of mine who lives in Yorkshire whose son is a boxer, because his dad was a boxer himself. He's always been around it and involved in it. And he's the one keeping that guidance and that discipline for him to carry on, because he knows if you want to make it as a pro in any sport, it's very, very hard to make it as a pro, but the work has to start now. And because he's involved in it and he's engaged in it, he's offering that support and guidance and making sure everything he needs to potentially get there, he's doing what he can. At the end of it, whether the British Asians are good enough or not is a different thing, but at least he knows I'm doing everything I can and going through the process to give my son every opportunity to make it. But if we've got a challenge where the competition's high, our families aren't very much involved, and then on top of that, there's other cultural issues which are more stumbling blocks, which a lot of people aren't aware of, you're not going to make it anywhere. But that's the same in any career.
I think if we want to shed a bit of light on it for Asian parents, if they can sort of soldier out 4 or 5 years of their child from the age of like 10, 11, if they have potential, if they can sort of be patient with them for about 5 years' time, once they turn 16, if they're good enough and they've made it to a club, they can then start getting a little bit of a pay for playing for that club, you see, and they call it a YTS scheme. And basically, that's like, they might get £500 a week for playing for that club. And obviously, that's the rewards later, though. But you've got to sacrifice the first 5 years of taking them every week, getting them whatever they need, the football boot, the water bottles, all that kind of stuff. If they can stay patient with them, then it might be that in 5 years' time, you see the rewards a lot sooner than becoming a professional, where you're talking about thousands of pounds a week,
Yeah.
So maybe...
It's only, I think, is 6 minutes left to programs to be end. So basically, I think we're trying to conclude. Pretty much. I think the message will, when I repeat again, is that if it's a financial things, every parents wants their children to have a good career, and I know a lot of young children, if they're not very good on study, but they are physically very good, they can become a very reasonable footballer as well. End of the day, you want to give the economy to your children to do well. Like Amar Khan is the example. Loads of other kids are like example. They are actually icons and they're making big time money as well. So guys, are you listening? Obviously, everybody have the children. There's a plenty to get out of it if you really put your head into it. I think most of you want to conclude it now because
Yeah.
there's only 5 minutes left anyway.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. First of all, Rick, thanks for coming on. And I just want to say what you're doing is an amazing job. I think for me, we need a lot more positive role models. And I mentioned it time and time again in the previous programs as well. If we want to be successful in these type of fields, we need the right people like yourself with the right attitude, with that experience, giving that guidance and nurture and support for the potential that's there. Because the last thing we want is wasted potential. And I just want to add that if our parents can get more involved, if your child is wanting to push for a sport, go down there, check it out, see what they're actually like, because you could be missing a trick there. And on top of that, like you said, it's a bit of happiness for them as well. We've mentioned bits and bats about genetics. Fair enough, genetically, we may have some struggles, but there's a lot of things we're really good at as well. And there's a lot of skills there. And if anything, in elder age, because of our genetics, we're likely to come across certain things, whether it's high blood pressure or diabetes and things like that. So getting them involved in a sport, whether it's boxing or cricket or football, and having that passion about it, like he says, Fame as well, they'll stay away from the tablets and be more likely to look after their mental and their physical health.
That's right.
Spot on. I think, like I say, that what you just said is absolutely bang on. We've seen in the last 15 years, lack of parental support, lack of, money in the game, or lack of money sacrifice, if you want, and the lack of Asians in sport already. But hopefully, all of that has changed now because we're seeing a new paradigm shift with Asian parents. Our elder brothers and uncles that are now seeing we need to pay for the kids to actually succeed in sport, and we need to be there by their side. We need to take them wherever they need to go, and hopefully that change will show a nice, positive, uplifting influx of Asian players in the next 10, 15 years.
That's right. That's right. I think you guys have said it all, and I hope there's a lot of our listeners taking some very solid point in there. So football is the game, not just only cricket. Might be loads of other games. Go send your kids, join that game, and make them fit and physical, and also they can make a career out of it. That's the only message I can say now. Thank you, Mohsen and Brother Rick, coming to doing this program. Our time is nearly over now, so we'll make bye bye to all the viewers. Hopefully, we'll see you every Saturday as we do 6 till 7. Mohsen Qureshi does this program. We'll see you next Saturday. Shukriya.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, thank you.